Hey everyone, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me today. My name is Lynn Voss with GoldenCare. I am coming up on 15 years here at GoldenCare in my position where I support the regional directors and I assist with marketing support. I help with quote requests, supply orders, um, various things, answering product questions. You name it. I wear many hats, but again, I'm a support person for our regional directors, and you've likely been in contact with them in the past. So I am perhaps one of the most familiar with the tool, StrateCision. This is actually a really powerful quoting and comparison tool. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about it first, and that way you know what it is. Now, this is not something that GoldenCare has created, but it is actually a vendor that we work with to enable our agents to quote and compare long-term care, short-term care, and even the linked benefit hybrid plans. So this is something that we have embedded on our website. If you haven't been to our agent-facing website yet, that web address is www.goldencareagent.com. The easiest thing to do, in my opinion, is just to type that address directly into the browser, into the search bar of your browser. It'll take you right to our GoldenCare Agent website. And the StrateCision tool that we're talking about today, it is actually the first option under the drop-down box under Tools. So this is going to tell you a little bit about what it is. We actually have a short demonstration video here that you are able to click and watch. If you do already have a username and password, you are able to put it in here and go directly into the tool. Otherwise, for brand new agents who have yet to request access, you would scroll down below the existing users section and request a new account. So filling in those fields, verifying that you're not a robot. When you register, then you will actually receive a confirmation with additional instructions. We actually have a single page sheet that would give you those same steps that will help you to follow along. When I send the slides and different information afterwards today, I'll actually include a link to this for any new agents who would like to use this tool. All right, so once you're in, and I'm actually going to switch, here we are. Once you're logged in, this is where you are able to choose between the long-term care and short-term care comparison tool or the hybrid comparison tool. They are two separate things. They open two separate pages. So when you first log in, you'll be able to identify which tool you would like to use. They look very similar, but I'm going to focus now just on the long-term care and the short-term care tool. So when you're looking at the tool, bear in mind that it will expand as you put the information in. So just note those scroll bars. Another one will show up here along the right as well. The very minimum information you would need to put in the agent field, the agent tab, the very minimum information is the agent name. You can certainly further customize the printouts that you'll see by entering some of the additional information in those extra fields. But again, the minimum is just the agent name. It's a little bit hidden, but the very last row here is where you would select whether you're going to quote and compare the long-term care versus quoting and comparing the short-term care. So it's easy to overlook, but this is where you would find that option. And for now, we're going to start by using this web quote feature, or this web quote tool. The web advisor is something that I'll cover in just a little bit. It goes through and offers those same tabs across the top a little bit differently, but you're able to select certain information and compare different pieces of information about the carrier itself, you know, gender classes, health classifications, you know, benefits, plan information. It's quite nice, but I'll cover that here in a little while. First, we're going to be doing the web quote because, of course, one of the primary things people want to see is pricing. So the minimum information you need on this client tab is the name and either date of birth or age and state. So I'm just going to put some things in. Of course, if you are working with a married couple, there is a very small checkbox here that would allow you to enter the spouse's information, the name, date of birth, or age. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and quote a single individual. When you hit next, you will move over to the policy tab. When you are building the web quote, you are selecting one carrier at a time. And we recommend starting with one of the more complex policies. So we almost always recommend to start with the mutual care custom solution. At times, Thrivent is a good one to start with. Being that there are relatively few traditional long-term care insurance companies left offering the individual coverage, you know, there are few options anymore, but I just wanted to mention that it is important because in the final printout, it may end up hiding or excluding some of the pertinent information. Whereas if you use one of the more complex products, it tends to include everything you would need to see. Now, this page is where you would put information in regarding the plan design. So you would go through and use the drop-down boxes to select what you are looking to quote. For now, I'm just going to go with a fairly basic plan, something that wouldn't cost too much. The first options are, this first grouping is just the basic policy options. StrateCision as a whole, they've made some enhancements over the last couple months, and one of those enhancements is that they've categorized some of the information. Instead of it being just one great big long list, they've now separated the couples options and some of the payment options and discounts, so it's easier to find instead of just scrolling through a long list. I'm going to go ahead and calculate the premium by clicking this button, and it will actually give you a premium even before you go on to the next page. I'm actually going to go up and quote females. Let's see what that gives us. Okay. So these options here, of course, you're always able to go back. Clicking help can actually, you know, if you're unable to move forward or if there's something that you're just not sure on, it does open a pop-up box that frequently asked questions. It may answer or help you move forward. You are able to click illustrations, and it will allow you to open a report that is not meant to, it's not meant to replace the carrier's own illustration. But what happens is if you're choosing to go this route, it does give you some of the alternate premiums. So that way, if you just have the printout and you're meeting with your client, you are able to access not only the basics of what you had put into the StrateCision software, but it does give you some of those extra pages, the cost of waiting, some of the alternative premiums. Sometimes it's handy to have, like I said, especially if you do not have access to the carrier's own illustration software. So this is something that is available through the StrateCision tool as well. But for now, I'm most interested in comparing this plan against others that are currently in the market. When you hit the compare button, it will open this comparison screen. So these are some of the pieces of information that I'd been referring to. And if you go with a more simplistic plan first, again, some of that information is hidden or left out. But in order to add additional carriers so that they are shown in this grid, you would move to the bottom and click Add Quote. Now, it may not be apparent, but you'd seen the scroll bar. I'm just using the scroll wheel on my mouse. Otherwise, you could click that scroll bar to move down like I had. I'm going to go ahead and select Thrivent here. Now, StrateCision is pretty intuitive. Based on the information you had entered in the original plan design, the tool tries to put in similar information. It's not a perfect science. It's not necessarily always going to be exact, but it does try. So just be aware of that. So for example, I had changed to a female initially on the custom solution quote. I had quoted select, which is Omaha's equivalent to standard health rates. And as you saw, the benefits already defaulted at those I'd used on the Mutual of Omaha plan. So there were a few things that I still had to choose, but now I am ready to calculate premium and compare. This will put that second carrier up side by side against the plan I had already created or priced with Mutual of Omaha. Now, when quoting an individual, you can actually quote up to 6 side by side. I'm going to go ahead and do one other one. And going through, again, it tries to map everything over as close as possible, but again, it's not perfect. Let's see here. And of course, it is limited by what options are available by the carrier. And I think that will become apparent on the very next screen. So I'm going to go ahead and let's switch this to monthly like the others. And we will hit compare. And here we are. We've got a comparison that shows all three side by side. As you'll see here, standard, it is NGL's premier class. This carrier only offers one class in this state. I've tried my best to put things as accurately as possible. But again, like I said, it is limited based on the carrier's own options. So here you'll see daily benefits as opposed to monthly. I used 2% compound on these carriers, which was available, but was not available on that third carrier I had quoted. So taking a look, you'll actually see some of the premiums listed there. I had selected monthly premiums for each of those three. Obviously, there are still some differences. If you are looking at your comparison, you'll see here that you are able to go in and modify. I should have zoomed in much sooner. I'm sorry it took me so long to do that. It's a little bit more visible to you all now. So Thrivent on their long-term care plan, they do actually have a cash benefit. So I'm going into modify and I'm including that now. I always, just best practice, I always hit calculate premium before moving on to compare, but you do not have to. So I can go ahead and hit compare, and you'll see now cash, whereas it is not available on the NGL product. But I'm getting to a point where I feel as though things are comparing relatively accurately. When you go, I'll actually go one step back. Now, I did not mention, but when you are in the carrier screen selecting benefits, you are able to click on something if you are unsure what it is. So for example, the cash benefit, it will actually explain a bit more about that cash benefit. And for an overall sweeping explanation on this screen, you are able to click the name of the company. And of course, these scroll bars come in handy because this is everything. You get a lot of information in this one pop-up box. It will not all fit on one page, but it is there in case you are curious or you have a question. But a lot of times I just recommend clicking on these options if you are curious. Now I will go ahead and go back to my comparison. And this is where I'm actually going to show you how you can generate a print off. If you have a printer set up with your computer, you are able to hit print and it'll show you a preview of it. And depending on, like I said, if you have a printer set up, you should just be able to print and it will come out on your printer as a hard copy. Because of my position and the type of work that I do, I am often emailing these illustrations to agents who request them. So I often click the print as PDF. So this allows you to export it as a PDF. And of course, you should be able to, let's see here. There we are. I just needed to blow the screen up a little bit. You're either able to save or print, and that way you're able to save it to your desktop and put it or attach it on an email later. And if you take a look at this, perhaps we'll blow this up again. StrateCision used to put all of this information, including the pricing, on a single page, but having changed some of the types of information and the amount of information that is shown, it is now on 2 pages. So in addition to showing the benefit amounts at age 80, it's a little more comparable to what appears in their hybrid quoting and comparison tool. One thing to note is that it does put other carrier-specific nuances in its own row. So where, for example, the Omaha cash benefit, it is listed here. Omaha has the ability to reduce the assisted living facility amount to either 75% or 50% of the nursing home benefit. That is something that you would see here. This carrier also has limited or smaller inflation term options or inflation duration, which means you're able to limit the period of growth to a certain number of years, 10, 15, 20 years, or allowing it to grow for lifetime. This is another one of those, this is another place that you would see that information. But like I said, I kept things fairly simplistic for now. So this is what you can also, you can print from here, you can add it to an email. Now, this is not necessarily meant for consumer presentations. It does help to establish your professionalism. the fact that you are, you're doing your due diligence, you're checking and making sure that you are providing the best plan for your client that has the best price and the best benefits. But this, again, does not replace the full carrier-specific illustration. So this is a third-party vendor, like I mentioned. I almost always double-check premiums against the carrier's software. And, a lot of times it's very, very close. A lot of times the difference is merely cents. It depends too if you are quoting, make sure that you're quoting the same information. But yeah, usually you're able to match things fairly accurately. And I usually can check one and feel confident that the other pricing is pretty good. It's actually the carrier's responsibility, because this is a vendor. It is the carrier's responsibility to provide accurate benefit information and pricing to StrateCision to be used in this third-party tool. So the information is often very accurate, just because carriers understand that these types of tools, in addition to something called Vital LTC, they're used by agents in the industry to help sell and increase awareness about long-term care insurance. So what I can also show you, there are more tabs along the top. So this is something that perhaps a few of you have already done yourself, but there's another thing that you're able to do. And based on your plan design, you can click search. And this is where you can put a specific plan design in without first selecting the insurance company. And it will actually generate a list of what carriers, in terms of cost, are the most competitive. So I'm going to go ahead and click New Search. So think for a moment. And based on my selections, I'm not sure if you caught it, but I did make a small change that would allow Northwestern Mutual's plan to come up. I changed the elimination period to 85 days. Now, this came up, and if I would like to include this on the illustration, or that side-by-side comparison rather, or if I would like to make some additional changes, you can select Show Details. And we've seen this before. This is where you're able to put very specific information into the software to make sure that it's going to compare accurately against the others that we have in our comparison. Again, I recommend calculating premium first, but you can certainly just go ahead and hit compare, and it will add that to your comparison. So even if you start by entering the agent and client information, you don't necessarily have to go directly to the policy and choose the carrier. That is another way that you can build these side-by-side comparisons. I will again warn that it doesn't replace having the product knowledge about each of the companies. As I pointed out, some of the nuances between some of these, sometimes the differences are not that obvious. It is no longer like comparing apples to apples. Many of the individual long-term care plans offered in the industry nowadays, they're unique. So it's difficult to find an apples to apples comparison. But that is another way that you can use the StrateCision tool. Now at this point, I am going to go ahead and refresh my page because I'm going to erase everything that I just did. In terms of erasing, I will let you know if you do leave this and go on to something else, if you move over to a different screen, or if you're taking too long to price check, if this screen, if the StrateCision tool is idle for it's about 15 to 20 minutes, it can time out. So what ends up happening is the tool that is embedded within our agent website, it will actually ask for a login. But if you are still logged in to goldencareagent.com, you can just hit the refresh button and it should bring that back up. So I'm going to go ahead and put the minimum information in again. I'm still going to keep the long-term care, but this time I'm going to show you what the web advisor does. This is a very nice feature because, like I said, this is a vendor, so it's more companies appear than just what GoldenCare offers. So I'm going to go ahead and use what I had before. When I hit next this time, it allows you to select more than one. So this is actually going to add those policies. I've selected 4. And you can certainly add more as well. It just gets to be a little a tougher grid to read. So I'm just going to stick with 4 for now. The very next option is going to allow you to see what types of information about these plans you would like to see compared. So like I mentioned, this is something where you can compare partnership, issue ages. I mean, you can compare the financial strength ratings, the premium classes. There's quite a bit of information that you can choose from. Again, the list is quite lengthy. But to show you what will end up happening, and by the way, to select individual items from this list, I am just holding down the control key and clicking. So then that will allow me to choose multiple things. Once I've grabbed my selections, you can add benefit. The things that had been highlighted from this first list on the left will then be moved to a list on the right. These are going to be the pieces of information that will be compared based on the carriers you had selected on the previous screen. So I'm just going to go ahead. That should be a sufficient amount of information. Once you've added all of the pieces of information you'd like compared, you'll hit next here, and it generates this nice policy feature comparison. So if for example, we do not have Northwestern Mutual in our GoldenCare portfolio. It is still a well-known company, and if I'm not mistaken, they may be the only company that exceeds Mutual of Omaha in total sales, according to LIMRA, and I think that's largely in part due to their career or captive team. But we don't have that in our portfolio, so this will actually tell me a little bit of, a little bit of competitors' information. I can find out what their health ratings are, whether it's gender distinct pricing, what their marital discounts are. And as you can see, you can actually compare that against the other carriers. If you are aware or familiar with the other carriers, this will give you some insight on the competition and how they compare. So there are times when I am asked about the inflation options that are available through a competitor's policy, and if I'm not familiar about it, I can actually come to the StrateCision tool, scroll down that list on the left. Oh, there they are. Add those options to my list of selections on the right, and hit next. And this will actually allow me to get information about the inflation options from the competition. Again, this is something that you are able to print. There is no print to PDF option here. However, it does generate a PDF using this option here. I usually just stick with short questions. And when you hit print, it will bring up that preview like we'd seen with the pricing illustration. But this, like I said, just uses the elections that had been chosen from the Web Advisor tool. So this is another way that StrateCision can really bring you up to speed quickly, especially if you're working with clients who do expect you to have checked pricing and really are bringing them the best plan at the best price. This makes short work of it. Now, I encourage you to, if you are not familiar with some of the different long-term care insurance companies or the policies, if you are not certain of how they compare with those different nuances, feel free to give our office a call. We do this quite often. We can certainly help, like I said, we can generate the pricing and comparison printouts. We can do these the carrier and feature comparisons. We can send those over to you by email. We can help answer any questions that you might have. If you are going to be using the tool, I do recommend paying special attention to this number in the very, very bottom right corner. So if there is some feature that is not working, that seem to be working during this presentation, or that you just cannot figure out, make a note of this number. Give our GoldenCare office a call and speak to one of the marketers. If we are able to help figure out what went wrong, we can certainly help with that. But if it is a legitimate issue with the StrateCision software tool, having that number, it's a session number, having that number in the lower right corner will allow the developers at StrateCision to recreate the issue and potentially fix what had been going wrong. So hopefully that is everything. Hopefully it wasn't too long. I did keep to right around a half hour. I'm going to see if there are any questions that have been typed in. It looks like we've got a couple, but I think I'm going to answer individually after the presentation. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, the website that you'd want to visit in order to take advantage of this StrateCision tool is goldencareagent.com. And there is a ton of information on there. Our contracting is there. We have a ton of different agent resources. Our phone number is there right along the top. A lot of these really great tools are readily accessible from this as well. And again, if you have questions or if there's anything that the marketing team or I can help with, feel free to give our office a call. You can reach us at 1-800-842-7799, and we'd be happy to help. Otherwise, thank you so much for all of your attention today and for joining me. I hope you all have a very happy new year and take care. We'll be talking soon.
Check out our website, goldencareagent.com, or give us a call at 800-842-7799.